The open sea. For centuries, it has been a realm of freedom, adventure, and unimaginable wealth. But for a brief, explosive period in history, it was also a kingdom of terror, ruled by men and women who answered to no king, no country, and no law but their own. This was the golden age of piracy, a time when the black flag cast a long, dark shadow across the busiest trade routes in the world. We think we know their stories, the swashbuckling heroes, the buried treasure, the skull and crossbones fluttering in the wind. But the truth is far more complex, more brutal, and infinitely more fascinating. These weren't characters from a storybook. They were real people, driven by desperation, greed, and a burning desire for a life of their own making, even if it meant a short one. They carved their names into history with cannon fire and cold steel, becoming legends whose tales still echo across the waves. Today, we're not just telling their stories. We're resailing into the heart of their world to uncover the 10 most infamous pirates who ever lived. Let's begin with a name that strikes fear even today. Edward Teach, better known as Blackbeard. His reign of terror was surprisingly short, just 2 years, but his impact was monumental. Blackbeard wasn't just a pirate. He was a master of psychological warfare. He cultivated an image so terrifying that many ships would surrender without a single shot fired. Imagine seeing his flagship, the Queen Anne's Revenge, appearing on the horizon. Then, as it draws closer, you see the man himself, a towering figure with a wild black beard braided into pigtails, with slow-burning fuses tucked under his hat, wreathed in a cloud of smoke. He looked like a demon straight from hell. One of his most audacious acts was blockading the entire port of Charleston, South Carolina. He held the city hostage, not for gold, but for a chest of medicine. It was a power move that showed he could cripple an entire colony at will. His end was as dramatic as his life, a bloody, desperate battle against Lieutenant Robert Maynard. Legend says Blackbeard was shot 5 times and cut more than 20 before he finally fell, a testament to the larger-than-life figure he had become. From theatrical terror to calculated success, we turn to Bartholomew Roberts, or Black Bart. Roberts is, by the numbers, the most successful pirate of the Golden Age. He captured over 400 ships in just a few years. Unlike many of his contemporaries, Roberts didn't even want to be a pirate initially. He was a second mate on a slave ship captured by pirates and was forced into the life. But once he was in, his natural talent for leadership and naval strategy quickly rose to the surface. He was elected captain and proved to be ruthlessly efficient. Black Bart was also known for his strict code of conduct. He was a devout Christian who banned gambling and drinking aboard his ship on the Sabbath. He was also a dandy, always impeccably dressed in fine crimson silks, even in battle. His flag was a symbol of his vengeful nature. It depicted him standing on 2 skulls, one labeled a BH for a Barbadian S-head, and the other a MH for a Martinican S-head, representing the governors of those islands who had dared to cross him. His death in battle, by a blast of grape shot to the throat, marked the beginning of the end for the golden age of piracy. His crew, honoring his final wish, wrapped his body in his finest clothes and buried him at sea, ensuring he would never be captured. Not all legendary pirates were men. Enter Anne Bonny and Mary Read, 2 women who shattered every stereotype of their time. Anne Bonny, an Irish noble's illegitimate daughter, was known for her fiery temper and fierce independence. She ran away from a settled life to the pirate haven of Nassau, where she fell in with the pirate Captain Calico Jack Rackham. Mary Read's journey was even more extraordinary. Disguised as a boy for most of her life, to join the British military, she eventually found herself captured by pirates and, seeing an opportunity for freedom, joined their ranks. For a time, serving on the same ship, neither Bonny nor Read knew the other was a woman. The reveal, as legend has it, came when another pirate made advances on the disguised Read, and Bonny, who was fond of her, intervened. When Read was forced to reveal her identity to avoid a duel, Bonny in turn confessed her own secret. Together, they proved to be as skilled and ruthless in a fight as any man. When their ship was finally captured, only Bonny, Read, and one other man stood and fought while Calico Jack and the rest of the crew were too drunk to resist. At his trial, Bonny's last words to Calico Jack were scathing. "Had you fought like a man, you need not have been hanged like a dog." Both women escaped the gallows by revealing they were pregnant, their ultimate fates remaining a tantalizing mystery in pirate lore. Now, let's talk about the pirate who inspired the legend of Captain Jack Sparrow, John Rackham, better known as Calico Jack. He wasn't the most successful or fearsome pirate, but his flair for the dramatic and his iconic flag have made him unforgettable. His nickname came from his penchant for wearing brightly colored calico clothing, a stark contrast to the rough attire of most seamen. But his real claim to fame is his Jolly Roger. When you picture a pirate flag, you're likely thinking of his design, a skull over two crossed swords. It's the quintessential symbol of piracy, recognized worldwide. Calico Jack's career was a roller coaster. He deposed his former captain, Charles Vane, for being too cautious, took the king's pardon, spent all his money, and then returned to piracy. His story is inseparable from Anne Bonny and Mary Read, who made his crew one of the most famous in history. Despite his legendary status, his end was rather pathetic. Captured by surprise, drunk, and unprepared, he was swiftly tried and hanged in Jamaica, his body displayed in a gibbet as a warning to others. From the flamboyant to the fearsome, we have Charles Vane. If Blackbeard used fear as a tool, Vane seemed to revel in cruelty for its own sake. He was notorious for torturing and killing the crews of the ships he captured, a reputation that made him one of the most hated pirates of his time. Vane was a staunch opponent of accepting the king's pardon, seeing it as a betrayal of the pirate way of life. When Governor Woodes Rogers arrived in Nassau to clean up the pirate haven, Vane famously fired on the Royal Navy ships and escaped using a captured ship as a fireship, a bold and defiant gesture. However, his own crew eventually grew tired of his reckless behavior and what they saw as cowardice. After he fled from a French war, he was deposed in favor of the more pragmatic Calico Jack. Vane's luck finally ran out when his ship was wrecked in a storm. He was marooned on a small island, eventually recognized by a passing captain, and handed over to the authorities. He was tried and hanged, an unceremonious end for such a notoriously vicious pirate. But what about the treasure? The pirate most associated with buried treasure is Captain William Kidd. Here, the line between pirate and privateer blurs into a tragic story. K. started as a respected Scottish privateer, hired by wealthy English lords to hunt pirates and French ships in the Indian Ocean. He was given a powerful ship, the Adventure Galley, and a clear mission. But things went horribly wrong. He struggled to find legitimate targets. His crew grew restless and mutinous, and under immense pressure, Kidd began making questionable decisions. He captured a few ships, including the Quedagh Merchant, a vessel loaded with treasure but sailing under French passes, making it a technically legal, if controversial, prize. By the time he returned, the political winds had shifted. His powerful backers had disowned him, and he was branded a pirate. Desperate to clear his name, he sailed to New York, allegedly bearing a portion of his treasure on Gardiner's Island as a bargaining chip. It didn't work. He was arrested, sent to London, and put on a show trial where he was denied evidence that could have proven his innocence. Hanged in 1701, Captain Kidd became the archetype of the pirate with buried treasure, sparking a treasure hunt that continues to this day. Even though the only treasure ever found was the small portion from Gardiner's Island, which was used as evidence against him. Our next pirate is Henry Every, also known as Longben. His story is unique because he is one of the very few major pirate captains to escape with his loot and disappear from history. Evie pulled off what is arguably the single greatest heist in pirate history. In 1695, he and his crew targeted the annual Mughal treasure convoy, returning to India from Mecca. After a fierce battle, they captured the grandest ship of all, the Ganjuzawai. The ship was carrying an astronomical amount of wealth, gold, silver, and jewels worth an estimated 600,000 pounds at the time, equivalent to hundreds of millions of dollars today. This act made Every the most wanted man in the world, prompting the first ever global manhunt. The sheer brutality of the attack on the Ganjuzawai's crew and passengers sent shockwaves through the world and severely damaged England's relations with the Mughal Empire. Despite the massive bounty on his head, Every and most of his crew managed to slip away. They sailed to the Bahamas, bribed the governor, and then scattered. Every himself vanished completely. Legends say he died in poverty, swindled out of his fortune, while others claim he lived out his days in quiet luxury. His disappearance remains one of history's great unsolved mysteries. We now turn to a pirate whose story is one of cunning and social mobility. Samuel Bellamy, known as Black Sam. His story is intertwined with a legendary romance. Bellamy, a young sailor from England, fell in love with a woman named Maria Hallett on Cape Cod. Her parents disapproved of the poor sailor, so Bellamy vowed to seek his fortune at sea and return a rich man. He turned to piracy, and with incredible luck and charisma, he quickly rose to become a captain. Bellamy was known as the Prince of Pirates. He saw himself as a Robin Hood figure, stealing from the wealthy merchants he saw as the true villains. He famously told a captured captain, "They vilify us, the scoundrels do, when there is only this difference. They rob the poor under the cover of law, forsooth, and we plunder the rich under the protection of our own courage. In a stunningly successful but short career, he captured over 50 ships. His greatest prize was the Whydah Galley, a state-of-the-art slave ship packed with treasure from over 50 previous captures. But tragedy struck. As he sailed back towards Cape Cod, presumably to reunite with his love, a violent storm wrecked the Whydah, sending Bellamy and nearly his entire crew to a watery grave. The ship and its treasure were lost for over 260 years, until its discovery in 1984, making it the only fully authenticated Golden Age pirate shipwreck ever found. Finally, we meet Stede Bonnet, the gentleman pirate. His story is perhaps the most bizarre of all. Bonnet was a wealthy, educated landowner from Barbados, with a family and a comfortable life. Then, in 1717, for reasons that remain a mystery, some say a nagging wife, others, a midlife crisis, he decided to become a pirate. Unlike every other pirate, he didn't steal a ship. He bought one, named it the Revenge, and hired a crew. He knew nothing about sailing or commanding a ship, which made his early career a comedy of errors. He eventually crossed paths with Blackbeard, who, seeing an opportunity, effectively took over Bonnet's ship and crew, keeping Bonnet as a guest. Bonnet briefly regained command, accepted a pardon, and even hunted Blackbeard for a time before inevitably returning to piracy. His incompetence eventually caught up with him. He was captured, tried, and despite his pleas for mercy, hanged. Stede Bonnet's strange and pathetic journey serves as a stark reminder that the brutal reality of pirate life was no place for a gentleman amateur. From Blackbeard's theatrical terror to Captain Kidd's tragic fall, these 10 figures were more than just thieves on the high seas. They were rebels, outcasts, and entrepreneurs of violence who created their own short-lived brutal kingdoms in a world that had cast them aside. They defied empires, created their own laws, and built legends that have outlived the very nations they terrorized. Their stories, stripped of romanticism, reveal a raw and desperate struggle for freedom and fortune against impossible odds. The golden age of piracy may be over, but the shadows of their flags, and the echoes of their infamous names, will forever haunt the open waters of our imagination. And that concludes our journey into this extraordinary moment in history. If you enjoyed exploring the past with me, don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell so you never miss our next deep dive. Now it's your turn. What historical event should we uncover next? Share your ideas in the comments below, and your suggestion might be featured in a future video.